Welcome back to the world of Daniel Hadwyn. Get ready to immerse yourself in the next chapter of his thrilling journey through a world of magic and adventure. Chapter 10. The old woman took money for groceries from the till, getting used to the notion that she owned everything in the store, even though she doubted her ownership of the shop itself. The bruises and wounds on her face, neck, and hand had healed. Feeling that the time was right, Hadwyn placed the figurine and the mirror-looking scroll in front of her. "Ariel," he said, "I need your help to see if you can remember anything about these." Looking at her, the boy grinned, hope welling up in his eyes. "I can try," said Ariel. "You believe that I'm familiar with these?" Hadwyn trembled when he touched the scroll and was almost in tears when he spoke. "Yes, Ariel, you do. But before I go on, I have to warn you that what I'm going to say might sound strange. To be honest, I thought that I'd gone mad with what I've seen from one of these gifts." The old woman tilted her head and frowned before she said gently, "Like in that magic trick you did with the blue fish which talks." The boy kept quiet for a moment. He was tempted to say that the fish originated from her. He smiled. "Just bear with me before you say anything further." Ariel brusquely interrupted, pushing the dragon and mirror aside. "All right, before you continue, could you do me a favor?" That was Ariel, which the boy remembered, one who halted him before he finished with what he had in mind. "I've a sudden urge to eat lobster." She took a wad of cash and placed them in Hadwyn's hand, saying, "When you are done with me, go to the supermarket and see if you can find 2 big lobsters. I'm going to cook them for our dinner this evening." The boy smiled, not feeling annoyed with her abrupt manner and the strange request. In fact, he felt a glimmer of hope in seeing signs such as Ariel's antics and her urges to eat seafood. Surely such a request pronounced the return of Ariel's memory. He let her continue without stopping her. "I would love some calamari and scallops too, and I'm sure that what you have there in your hand would be sufficient, even for something extra like ice cream. Ben and Jerry, I think, would be great for dessert, okay?" Her eyes twinkled. The boy nodded. Sure. A meal to remember indeed." "And what was it again?" said the woman quickly. "That you wanted to tell me about these 2 items here before I interrupted you?" "Yes, Ariel. These 2 are part of the 3 gifts that you had given me in a wooden box. Could you please keep them with you for a moment to see if they might jog your memory?" he said, but stopped short of saying anything further, fearing that he might mar the jovial atmosphere by saying too much. "And?" Ariel asked, anticipating more words from him. "Just keep them with you, please," the boy said. "I shall go ahead and get us some plump-looking lobsters for dinner. Not forgetting the calamari and the scallops, my dear. Oh, and the ice cream, too," she said. Hadwyn left the store, working on his shopping list at the supermarket, while Ariel stared ponderously at the mirror and the dragon. Why would I even give Hadwyn such things, she thought. Her mind drew a blank while she stared at the items for a long time. Then she held up the dragon and studied it closer, but still, she didn't have any recollection of ever seeing the dragon. Unwinding the scroll, Ariel saw her reflection in the mirror and laughed to see a funny face which she made. She put the dragon and the scroll on the side of the table, keeping some space free for a cup of tea and some biscuits. What a delightful afternoon it's going to be, she thought. She took a book, an old heavy one with a hard cover, from the shelf and set it next to her plate of biscuits. She could not remember seeing the book at all, but strangely enough, when she flipped through the book, she thought that the content felt familiar to her. In a fit of frustration, Ariel slammed the book onto the table. The round desk wobbled with her cup of tea toppling, spilling the content onto the surface and wetting some part of the book. Ariel tried stopping the tea from dripping onto the floor with her hands, but the table wobbled even more from her contact, causing the dragon and the scroll that sat precariously on the edge of the table to fall into a dustbin. She grabbed sheets of tissues to soak up the spilled tea and then threw the soiled tissue into the dustbin, not realizing that the dragon and the scroll had dropped into it, thus covering the precious objects. Feeling annoyed when she saw the book was also wet, Ariel dumped the book into the dustbin. Ding, a ding, ling, ding, a ling. The door opened, and a young lady dressed like a student peered through the door. "We are closed, young girl. The hanging sign at the door says quite clearly..." "I'm sorry, ma'am. My name is Lorney. We are having a charity drive and would like to provide some cleaning service for as little as a token of shillings." Ariel scoffed and tapped on the table. All right. Just what I needed. Someone to spoil my morning tea further, she thought. "Here, some cash for your charity program." "Thank you, but I have to do some cleaning for you before I can collect your kind donation." "I don't think there is much you can help with. I have an efficient helper here in the store." "How about I help you to clean your table and empty your rubbish bin that seems to be quite full?" The young lady insisted before taking the money from the old woman. Ariel rolled her eyes and huffed. "All right, go ahead, and could you wipe the bin while you are at it before the tea dries up? It gets sticky with the dried tea on it." "Sure," said the cheery young student who was already holding the bin, heavy with the book and the gifts. She appeared to have taken the bin to the back where the municipal refuse bin was. She wiped both the table and the bin. After completing her chores, Lorney took the donation and left. Chapter 11. In a secluded forest of Shirakami-sanchi in Aomori, Japan, there exists a quiet little monastery, nestled within the serene and verdant hill of what had been known as the symbiotic forest. In the present day, not many knew about the monastery, much less the small community that ran and looked after the sanctuary. However, in ancient times, the fame of the monastery spread far and wide with tall tales of a benevolent prince who became a monk. The sage was well versed with the many different uses of medicinal herbs. The recluse led a life of servitude, tending to the needs of the sick and poor in Aomori villages. In the present day, those faithful inmates were disciples living their lives, keeping faithfully to the tenets passed down by the sage. Written manuscripts by the monk became collections that were kept as relics in a shrine. It was a token of the people's love and appreciation for him. Now the prince's intention for his written manuscripts was to impart all his knowledge to anyone who cared to learn, especially the medical knowledge which he had accumulated. Unfortunately, instead of making full use of his recorded experience, they kept all his carefully detailed journal as part of the shrine, forbidding anyone from reading them for fear that they might destroy what precious relic they had from the prince. They were kept in their pristine condition, as on the day the sage had left his works for them. The inhabitants of the monastery were taking an afternoon nap when all of a sudden, a dragon figurine and a scroll materialized out of thin air onto the shelf, adding to the precious few revered artifacts there. Chapter 12. The boy brought home the lobsters, scallops, squids, and a packet of shelled clams from a nearby supermarket, and volunteered to cook his version of New England clam chowder for Ariel. Evening came, and both the woman and the boy had a lavish meal set before them. Ariel spooned the piping hot clam chowder into her mouth. She raised her eyebrows and said, This is one delicious New England clam chowder, best I've ever tasted." Hadwyn broke into a wide grin. "Where have you learned such fine cooking at so young an age?" "My mom," said Hadwyn after swallowing what was in his mouth. "The soup became my school charity fair's favorite cup of chowder," he added, in between spooning the soup and savoring the bits of clams in the rich broth. "Your mom, huh? You hardly mentioned anything about her or even your dad, other than you being sent here on a holiday." "But," the boy, feeling stumped, looked at Ariel blankly. "You would not remember anything anyway if I were to tell you." Ariel nodded and said, "You got a point there." She then grabbed the lobster, and while peeling the head off the body, she added, "Funny that you mentioned about the school charity, which reminds me of a visit I had from a schoolgirl this morning when you left for the supermarket. She offered to clean the store for as little as a token of a donation." Ariel froze when she was just about to pass the claw cracker to the boy. She fixed her gaze at some indefinite distance, and then her face changed. She got up, with the claw cracker still in her right hand, and walked over to the desk where the teapot sat. She gasped. Hadwyn, already chewing on the fried scallop, savoring the succulent and delicious flesh with the rich aromatic flavor that only the freshest seafood could bring, froze. He watched intensely, following the abrupt change in composure of the old woman. He put the fork down next to his plate and said, "What is it, Ariel?" I have this terrible feeling that something was missing after the young girl left the store, but I could not put a finger around it. And I've just realized that they are what you have left on my little desk this morning. The old woman, already looking remorseful, avoided eye contact with Hadwyn. Hadwyn's face turned pallid. "You... sure? Maybe you could have placed them somewhere else?" His trembling voice made Ariel feel sick to the stomach. "Oh, good heavens, no. I doubt it." Ariel sighed and rubbed her lips and then her forehead. "I would have remembered clearly if I ever moved them. I can't recall who I am, but I remember very well all the things that have happened today. Misplacing your precious gifts? Impossible. The last time I touched them was when I took the dragon up to inspect closely, and I realized that I haven't the slightest inkling of ever seeing the dragon. I put it down on that same table, at the very corner, to make space for my biscuits and tea." The woman blinked a couple of times and continued, "Yes, and," she pointed to the table, "that very corner on the desk where I had placed them." Rubbing her chin ponderously, she gazed at the boy, her eyes widened. "Oh, goodness gracious! The spilled tea must have distracted me, and the dragon and mirror could have dropped into the dustbin that was just next to the table." "But the bin is empty now!" cried Hadwyn. The woman hurried to the back of the store where 2 big dumpsters were located, followed closely by Hadwyn. The boy's hands turned cold, and he felt weak on his knees with his stomach all knotted up again. "Ariel, did you see the dragon and the scroll dropped into the dustbin?" he asked slowly, while the woman opened the huge lids for the 2 different dumpsters, and both she and the boy peered into the empty cavity of the 2 big containers, one for recycling and the other for normal refuse. The woman closed the lids back gently. Hadwyn searched the whole store but could not see the dragon or the scroll. Could the girl have taken them? After all, the dragon looked attractive, and she might think that you have given it to her. I might be a charitable person as far as memory serves me right, but I surely don't remember that I am that generous. But then again, everything about me is contestable, isn't it? The woman chuckled, but Hadwyn failed to see levity in the situation. He was in a state of distraught. She, had a slim-looking sling bag, and I doubt the dragon would fit into it. I think she was of a Chinese descent. Hadwyn covered his face with his hands, for he was already in tears. Why is this happening to me? I am so sorry, my dear boy. I just don't know what happened to them. But hey, look on the bright side. We have a whole store of cute-looking antiques, and since they are mine, you may choose anything to your fancy. Take 2, 3, or even 5 items you find interesting. Take them as a token of my appreciation for spending time with me, and also as a replacement for the loss. The boy shook his head, his eyes all glazed and teary still. It is not the gifts or any objects in this store that I am bothered about. You sent my mother into the mirror before losing your memory, and I am here to ask you to reverse that spell. What utter rubbish are you talking about, me sending your mother into a mirror? The woman retorted, and she was loud. Much to her surprise, she had not meant to be so harsh. Hadwyn sat on a chair, hoping to calm his nerves. Tears continued to well up once again in his eyes as he scanned the store from where he sat. "Hannah!" he called, and reached out for a little reliquary. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the latest chapter of Daniel Hadwyn and the Mirror of Limbo. Your interest in my work means a lot to me, and I am grateful for your continued support. If you enjoy the story so far, please consider following me so that you can be notified when the next chapter is posted. I am excited to share more of Daniel's journey with you, and I hope you'll join me for the rest of the adventure.